And we are live. Welcome back to another episode of Reason, religiously educated atheists, secularists, and other non-theists, aka the Secular Round Table. I'm Aeolus, your host, and you can find me at God Works Out or at thesecularroundtable.com. And today we're going to be discussing atheists at risk. Anybody want to introduce themselves?
Yeah, sorry. I am the Godless Engineer. You can find me on Facebook. Just type into the search bar Godless Engineer or Godless Engineering. You can find me on Twitter as well. Also on Instagram and YouTube. I actually just put up, I believe it was yesterday, a video criticizing that Megan Fox character where she goes to the museum, and I explain radiometric dating and why it's important to knowing how old stuff is. And so just please feel free to go there and find me.
Hi everybody, my name is Brendan. I am the Prototype Atheist, and you can also find me on YouTube as well. Head on over to my channel and check it out. Subscribe if you see what you like over there. You can also find me on Twitter and YouTube. My last video I did was addressing a video done by a creationist who was arguing that science is atheistic in nature and that it's a religion and therefore should not be taught in public school. And that was my first real attempt at a video response. So it was a new format for me. So I think I may be doing more of those in the future. I may even be addressing Megan Fox. I've just been busy this past week with the holidays and everything, and didn't get a chance to. And also, I sent her a request for to do an interview. She actually lives nearby in my area, but I haven't gotten a response on that, and I'm not expecting one. But I was holding out hope, and since it looks like one's not coming, I think I might just do a video addressing her as well. But at any rate, come on over, check me out, and see what I have to offer. Shoot it back to Aeolus.
Yes, and we have Buddy Jesus Smokes in the chat room. What's up, Buddy Jesus Smokes? Welcome to another episode of Reason. I see GE has his Reason shirt on there. I'm going to let him go ahead and show you guys that. If you like that t-shirt design, you can go over to the secularroundtable.com and check it out. Go ahead and do a little advertising, GE, of that beautiful shirt you got there.
Here is the shirt you can get from the secularroundtable.com. I believe it's $20, right? Just go there, check it out. It's pretty cool.
Yes, the shirt is $20, and that does not include shipping and handling, but shipping and handling is relatively cheap. So you guys go over there and check that out. We still have a couple in stock. We will be having some new t-shirt designs up soon, so check those out as well. We also have a blog over there. You can check that out. Don't forget to sign up for the Reason newsletter. It's a weekly newsletter that you can find in the description box below. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into the topic of discussion for today, which is atheists at risk. So what do we mean by that? Well, we know that generally people with a higher IQ or a higher intelligence tend to be atheists. And also, generally, if you have a higher intelligence or a higher IQ, you are more susceptible to mental health issues as well as substance abuse. So now, we're not saying that that is directly a causation, but we do want to kind of draw the line here and see if we can't figure out the correlation. So that is our topic of discussion for today. And it's going to be headed off by GE, the Godless Engineer. Also, one other thing, guys, we got the Prototype Atheist in here, and he's trying to get to 1,000 subs before the end of the year. Let's make it happen.
Oh, Brendan, were you going to say something?
No, that's all right. I was just gonna say, yeah, thanks to everybody. You know, if you're watching us and you're not subscribed to me, like I said, come over and check me out. That was just a personal goal that I had set to try to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I started doing this about a year ago. You know, I know that Steve Shives gave me a shout out just a couple days ago in his video, so that helped a lot. That was unexpected, and I'm up almost 100 subscribers just from last week's show, last Sunday, so just in the last week. So, thanks to everybody who has subscribed. If you're watching, if you haven't yet, don't subscribe if you don't like what I do. But if you do, if you want to come check it out, if you're not sure, if you haven't seen my stuff, come check it out. And if you like what you see, please do a subscribe so you can continue to get more of my content. That was it. That's all I wanted to say. So go ahead and do your thing.
Alrighty. Yes, do go and check out Prototype Atheist and subscribe if you like his content. He's got some really great stuff. What I am going to lead off with tonight is discussing the dynamic between dealing with mental illnesses, between theists and atheists, and just kind of that dynamic. It's my own personal belief, and I think that there's a lot of evidence to support it, that religion really does help hide mental illness in our society, because religion is such a socially acceptable thing. It's socially acceptable to have this preacher up on a stage and slap you in the forehead and say, hey, your cancer's cured. It's socially acceptable to, when you get burned, that your family forms a ring around you and starts praying to God in order to heal your wounds, your burn. Those things have become something that's socially acceptable. I have a cousin. He talked to his grandmother about liking the book series Harry Potter. And her friends immediately formed a circle around them and started praying. And so, while there is an element of sanity in some religious people, that they don't forego, all of their mental capabilities in favor of their faith, there's a substantial amount of people that do. And it's those people that are the real danger to society, because their religion allows them to hide in plain sight, kind of like with the Muslim guy earlier this year that was preaching his faith at his job, and when people wouldn't convert or whatnot, he went in there and started slicing people's heads off. I know, yeah. He sliced one woman's head off, and I think after that he got stopped. But I think that he still would have committed those things. But I think that if he didn't have that veil of religion to cover him, we might have been able to see it sooner, or somebody in his personal life would have been able to really recognize it for what it is. Instead of praying to Allah or preaching about Allah, he might have been trying to convert people to the donut religion or something like that, something that's just outlandish. So I think that religion really does have this sort of cloaking effect for the mentally disabled, or not disabled, but mental illness. Thank you, son. For the mental illness in our society. Now, as far as how that relates to us as atheists dealing with it, most atheists, at least in America, we're coming out of religion. We're lifting that fog as we start questioning things. And so, as we lift that fog, we might notice some things in our lives that really make us think, well, this really isn't right. Maybe I should talk to somebody about this. And due to that, there are several institutions and organizations that have been set up to really help atheists without a belief in God, because a lot of the grief or mental illness care that's not like purely medical has a lot of them are like religious in nature, but the more organizations are starting to pop up to allow atheists to come and get help without having to succumb themselves or compromise their core beliefs in order to get help. And being in the South, I'm in North Alabama. you know, a lot of the institutions around here are purely religious based. I know that there's there's one organization in town that is a Christian organization, but they offer like a secular option or something like that. Um, and so it's getting more tolerant. It's getting more open to the non-religious crowd. But you know, coming out of religion and the things that you might suffer while you're in religion. Now, I'm not talking about, like, you know, the people that I don't want to say don't necessarily suffer, but there's a substantial amount of people that are much more affected by what religion causes other people to do to them. I have a friend, Timothy Havener. He's you know, he's clearly affected by his upbringing and his family, the way they treated him. And you know, we've really bonded over this because, you know, he's got depression, I've got depression too, and so we've been able to really help each other out with that. And you know, going back to what we've talked about with our previous you know, shows about online communities or communities in general, you know, being able to help each other out has been just a really big help, at least to me, and I'd like to think to him, and as well as other people like in my group. But you know, as people come out of the fog of religion, and you know, they really realize, you know, what they have been, you know, subjecting themselves to, all of that self-hate, that guilt, and everything like that. That really does take a mental and emotional toll on somebody. And so, you know, I think it's very important to keep in mind that, you know, if you're feeling depressed, or you know, latching on to some of those things that you're carrying over from, you know, when you were religious or anything like that, you should really reach out to somebody, either professional or just friends, and talk with them about it. And I think ultimately, if you do feel that way, you should seek, you know, some kind of professional help, because I mean, that's what I did, and it helped me.
Thank you very much for that, GE. Shout out to our viewers on YouTube. We've got Joey Kirkman that joined in. He said he's in his hot tub, fap. Hey, you know, GE is a pretty hot guy, so, you know, go ahead and do your thing, man. So one thing I don't know if you mentioned when I took my dog out there, if you were talking about, I know you were talking about how religion can mask these mental illnesses, but did you actually speak on how some religions, did you get to talk about that some religions totally disregard mental illnesses as it's not even a real thing?
Oh no, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, like for instance with Scientology, you know, they have this belief in thetans, that thetans are these evil spirits within you that cause you to have, you know, these depressive thoughts or depressive episodes or any other kind of personal issues that you might have. They're just thetans. And you know, that's what they're doing when you get audited. You know, you hold these two metal rods and then they measure something. You know, it's all BS, but you know, they're measuring something there, and it's like how many thetans or how strong the thetans. I really don't know, but I do know that they don't you know, want you to take any kind of antidepressants or anything like that, because they think that it can be solved by dealing with these thetans that live inside you, or that exist inside you, not necessarily live. But you know, it's things like that that can really be dangerous. Because you really shouldn't tell people, no, you don't need antidepressants, because you know, I've been in those states where I am just not thinking clearly, and some of the wildest, craziest things come into my head, and you know, after about a couple hours, you know, I come out of it, and you know, I just sit there and think, like, how could I think that kind of thing, you know? And so you know, it's a very dangerous thing to sit there and say, don't take antidepressants. It's really these evil spirits that live within inside you that are really screwing you up. That's just totally, I don't even know. I can't even think of a good word to describe that. It's reckless. It's abusive. I mean, if at any point you are faced with somebody that is telling you, no, don't take this medicine, you just need a slap upside the head, you don't need to listen to them anymore. You need to get out of there quick, and you actually need to get somebody that will actually help you.
I agree 100%. Also, it doesn't only apply to Scientologists, because I know a lot of Baptist churches and maybe some other denominations have the healing and deliverance services. Now, I went to a few of those as a Christian, and I kind of realized, like, early on, man, like, this is just some really messed up stuff. So if you do go to a healing and deliverance thing, you kind of see where, you know, somebody may have had some childhood issues, and then they attribute that to a demon, and then they, you know, exorcise the demon out of you and all this craziness. But the truth of the matter is, and I didn't want to touch too heavily on faith healing here, but that is sort of a variation of faith healing, where you believe that if you have enough faith, you know, God will heal you of whatever is going on, and that can apply to mental illnesses as well. I have a friend who suffered from severe depression, and his family used to pray over him all the time, but, you know, it never got any better until he moved out and started getting antidepressants. So as GE mentions there, you do need to address these issues. Brendan, would you like to say anything on what we're talking about here regarding these faith healings or Scientology?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that just kind of underscores the harm that could be done by religion in that area, as far as not dealing with mental illness as appropriate. You know, things like exorcisms or faith healing, like you're talking about, like, you know, instead of recognizing a mental illness as you know, for what it is, an actual medical condition, an underlying physiological condition that needs to be treated medically, they treat it as, you know, demon possession or something of that nature. And, you know, maybe that was understandable, you know, back through history, but we know better now. We know how to diagnose these things better than ever, more than ever, how to treat them. Obviously, it's not perfect yet. You know, there's still work to be done, depending on what condition it is. But yeah, I absolutely agree that in that area, religion does fail, and it leads people astray, because, you know, especially with something like depression, you know, a lot of the times people treat it like it's not an actual disease. They just like, oh, you know, just cheer up, or, you know, why aren't you happy? And they fail to understand that it's an actual medical condition that needs to be treated just like anything else. You know, if you have something wrong with your body, you know, you would go get a surgery, or you would take some medication or something. And something like depression or mental health is absolutely no different. You need professional help. And so, you know, it's interesting, and, you know, we'll get into this a little bit more going forward, that it seems to be the case, or at least, you know, there have been some correlations made that atheists may be at higher risk for mental health issues, which seems counterintuitive given, you know, what we're discussing here. But I'll go ahead and let you say your piece and what you wanted to say, and then we can kind of revisit this when I come back around, and we'll see what you have to say, and then I can kind of add to it.
All right, so real quickly, let me go ahead and let you guys know that I now have a Patreon page up, and you can go support our group by going to patreon.com/reason. I have a lot of milestones over there that talks about, you know, my philanthropy and social activism projects, as well as supporting our live stream. You know, as I said in the video that I uploaded yesterday, pimping ain't easy, making videos ain't easy. You need video editing software, Brendan. You need new cameras, you need things like that. So don't forget to support us in any way you can. And if you do buy t-shirts at thesecularroundtable.com, you can see up there that we have listed 50% of our profits will be going to the Freedom from Religion Foundation, because that is one of my favorite charities, and the other 50% will go to Promoting Reason and all of those other things that you can see in the milestones on Patreon. Also, real quickly, let me give a shout out to the first monthly atheist box on the market, Atheism Box. If you're interested in a monthly subscription box that promotes positivity and the understanding of science without trashing any religions, check out Atheism Box at atheismbox.com. So real quickly now, we'll transition into what I wanted to talk about. And I want to kind of make this open-ended as well as inviting anyone in, because I don't really want to only make this applicable to atheists. I want to also make this applicable to anyone that is suffering from mental illness, substance abuse, depression, suicidal thoughts, anything like that. So the first thing that I want to say is that, do I think that atheists may be more at risk than the average person? I'm going to have to go out on a limb and say yes, I think that they would, because not only do atheists suffer from social isolation, which can cause a lot of psychological problems, they also tend to be more intelligent and have higher IQs. Now, this is generally speaking, and we know that people that have higher IQs and higher intelligence also are more susceptible, especially to substance abuse, and it can come along with mental illnesses. And a lot of times people try to treat those mental illnesses with substances, which is just doubling up on the problem. So what I want to say to start off is that if you're experiencing mental issues, if you're having suicidal thoughts, shout out to Persephone66 over on YouTube. So if you're having these suicidal thoughts, you're suffering from depression, you're having any mental issues, first let me say that it's okay. It's not normal, it is abnormal, but it's still okay. It's okay to feel this way. It's okay to have these issues. And what I wanted to talk about is, what can you do about it? So first of all, you need to make a decision. You kind of have to come to the realization, is this something that is causing you a lot of harm? Is this something that is affecting your life in a negative way? And if it is, what can you do about it? So, you know, they have the 12-step program, but we atheists, you know, we don't believe in a God, so that kind of rules us out on that. And we can talk about later on the guy who sued and, you know, won his money for not doing the 12-step program. But I'm going to present you with the 3-step program. This is for atheists or anyone else that wants to make it simple. So first, you need to recognize that you have a problem. Second, you need to figure out what you're going to do about it. And third, then you implement and execute. So you need to decide, can you make this problem work for you? Can you make it be not negative but have a positive impact on your life? And if not, then you need to try to change it. Let me also go ahead and say substance abuse. If you're experiencing substance abuse, it's bad all around, and you really need to seek help and counseling. It's okay to admit that you have a problem. It's okay to seek help for substance abuse. There's such a huge stigma associated with mental health issues and substance abuse, but it's okay to admit you have a problem and seek help. So I have a wide range of psychological quirks and issues. I'll just tell you about one of them because I can't talk about all of them. It may, you know, hinder my future career as an airline pilot, so I can't disclose all of those. But I will talk about one, which is an eating disorder that I have. So as a child, you know, I had a lot of bad experiences with my mother. She used to starve me a lot. In fact, I know a couple summers after school, she would like lock me in my room and only feed me bread and water for like the whole summer. So I don't want to make this too much of a sob story, but basically what that did to me, and I didn't even realize it until much later in life, is that I always eat. Anytime I saw food, I would eat, and I would not stop until all the food was gone. And sometimes I would catch myself eating, you know, I'd just be doing something around the house, and I just look down and I have food in my mouth. And I was just like, man, how is this happening? So eventually I realized that I had a problem, which was eating everything, everywhere, all the time. And anytime food became available, I would eat it just because I knew what it was like to go without. And psychologically, that had damaged me. So I had to decide, you know, the 3-step program, recognize the problem, recognize that I had a problem, figure out what to do. can I make this problem work for me? For a while, it did work for me because I started working out, and basically eating all that food and working out, it made me get jacked up, you know, getting all swole around here and stuff. But eventually, I would just eat more, and the more prosperous I became in life. Not saying I'm the most prosperous person, but the more availability of food I had, so I would just keep on eating. So what I had to do, I diagnosed the problem. I realized I had a problem. What I did, I cut back on food, and I would write notes everywhere, like at my desk, at my computer, you know, in the living room. I had a bunch of sticky notes everywhere. Do not eat. Sounds so silly, but it worked for me. Do not eat. So eventually I became in control of that issue, and I was able to make it work for me. So that's just one of the ways that you can go about doing it. A 3-step program. Recognize the problem, figure out what to do. Can you make it work for you? And then once you figure out what to do, implement and execute. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot it back over to the prototype atheist so we can get the discussion portion going after he finishes up.
Okay, yeah, thanks. You mentioned something I think pretty important there, and that's that you know, if you have any sort of problem that you're dealing with, if you have any mental health issue, substance abuse, or anything that's affecting your daily living, you know, that you should seek help for it. You know, address it, and don't be afraid to confront whatever it is that's plaguing you, and don't let your pride get in the way. Don't let you know, if you have family that's supportive that can help you, you know, don't be afraid to take it to them. If you have the ability to see a doctor, if that's required, you know, do what you need to do. And the other thing is, we're not trying to, you know, pit religious people against atheists here and say that one's better than the other or anything like that. You know, these things can affect anybody. And you know, it's a problem. It's a human problem that can affect people, and we want everybody to get help, regardless of what your beliefs are. That's first and foremost. As far as I'm concerned, I haven't had any. You know, I guess the thing that I can relate as far as my personal experience is quitting smoking cigarettes. I smoked cigarettes for 10 years, a pack a day, and quitting was really, really hard. And you know, I recognized I had a problem, and I wanted to quit, and it was just really difficult. Addiction is a powerful thing, whether it's something as simple as nicotine addiction, caffeine, or you know, anything, drug abuse, alcohol, anything of that nature. But whatever it is, they're all drugs, and if you realize that it's impacting your life and that you want to make the change, you have to commit to it, and you know, take whatever steps necessary. It took me several times to quit smoking. And eventually I was able to do it cold turkey, but it was very difficult, and it was tough. It was definitely tough going through that experience. And you know, at this point, I've come out the other side. I'm very glad that I did. You know, it's been, I think, 4.5 years now since I quit smoking, and I don't even want to go anywhere near a cigarette, honestly. So, you know, that's just proof positive right there that if you can recognize a problem, whatever it may be, and set yourself to it and try to take care of the problem, seek help, you can definitely do it. I do want to address this issue of, you know, mental health as far as concerning atheism. You know, there have been some studies out there that have kind of correlated atheism with, you know, worse mental health than, say, that in comparison to theists or religious people. And you know, I don't know if these studies are factoring in that atheists tend to be males, like overwhelmingly. I don't know what the ratio is, the percentage. Maybe it's like 75%, something in that area, like 60%. So, but yeah. So I know that personally on my channel right now, out of my subscribers, my female subscribers are 10% of my audience. So I mean, I know obviously it's not 90% males that are atheists out there. That's just reflective of who's watching my channel. But that just kind of shows you that males kind of dominate atheism disproportionately. And we also know that males are more likely to be affected by things like depression and mental health issues. So I'm just wondering if these studies are taking that into account as a variable. Another thing is that, you know, and GE mentioned this a little bit earlier, is when people are brought up in a religious environment and then later become atheists, they might be still battling those so-called demons, the things that they had to deal with that are latent in their mind, maybe the abuse, the psychological abuse might stay with them even as they've left religion behind. They might still be dealing with that mentally, and so that might be affecting them. And so, to say that atheists are more likely to have, mental problems, maybe you look at the fact that because they've come out of religion, that was maybe causing some of that. And another thing is that atheists tend to be outcasts. They tend to be socially not accepted, especially in certain areas of the country. And when you take that into consideration, it's like with the LGBT community or the transgender community, the rates of suicide and suicide attempts among those groups are much higher than the general population. And it's the same with atheists as well. And, it's not necessarily the condition or the fact of being an atheist or being gay or transgender that's causing that. It's the social rejection, I think, is what's causing it. So it's not their actual belief system or their actual physiological trait or the lifestyle or anything like that. It's just the social rejection by their family, by their peers, by society can really pile on and just exacerbate that depression or that mental health issue, I think. So those are all things to take into account when dealing with this subject. Now, there's also the fact that religion acts kind of like as a placebo effect. So they've also done studies showing that religious people have better mental health, maybe that they live longer lives, have better blood pressure, various attributes, and it's just because religion acts as a placebo, because people, it gives them hope, it inspires them, it gives them something to live for, it gives them a purpose. And that's not to imply that atheism is inherently nihilistic or hopeless or anything like that. But certainly religion does give people hope, and so you can see that people who might otherwise be atheists can kind of grasp onto that hope that religion offers them, and they might become religious, or then come to accept God, or accept Jesus, or become born again, or all of these things that we hear about. Aeolus mentioned the 12-step program earlier. How many people do you hear relating these stories about how they grew up and they were young and they were being promiscuous and they were doing all these drugs and alcohol and partying and just living this wild lifestyle, but now they found Jesus and they cleaned up their act. Well, is that really because of that, or is it because they just happened to mature, or maybe they went through the 12-step program, and as part of that you have to acknowledge a higher power? It's kind of built into the system. So is it that religion really helps you overcome those things, or is it just something that's built into the recovery system that happens to be something that people go through? So is it really religion doing that? Is it really belief in God that's helping you overcome these things? That's something to consider as well. And then another thing that GE mentioned earlier too was the importance of having a community for atheists, and that having, because we can be social outcasts, having that sense of community and support, mutual support for each other, where you can have a place to go, whether it's an online community, whether it's somewhere you can go and meet, whether it's a Sunday assembly, whether it's a local humanist chapter, or whatever, somewhere where you can go to talk to like-minded people, and you can open up to them about your problems or what you're feeling or what you're experiencing. Maybe you can't go to your parents or your family because you'll be rejected, and that'll only exacerbate the situation. So that's another thing to keep in mind, is the importance of having a community to go to. So that's kind of my take on it. Shoot it back to you, Aeolus, and we can continue the discussion portion.
Yes, as Prototype Atheist mentioned there, the community aspect is extremely important, because one of the main things that we face here in America, and probably everywhere else, but mostly here in America, just because America's most hated minority is atheists, is that we face a social isolation as atheists. And you have to beware when it comes to social isolation, because isolation tends to be one of the main contributors to suicide, because usually when someone commits suicide, they really didn't have anyone to turn to or things like that. Now, that is not all of the cases. Some of the cases just happen to be that people are experiencing some kind of issue that is just so powerful and so strong that they feel it's the only way out. But a lot of times it does tend to be isolation. If you're consistently isolated, then you don't feel like you're important to anyone else. And this doesn't only apply to atheists, but as atheists, we do experience that directly. So I wanted to, I put a bunch of links in the description box so you guys can go and check it out. So that's something that we did differently this time. I wanted you to have all of the information that we saw beforehand while you watch this video. So if you check the description box, you'll see all the links down there. But I wanted to talk about a couple statistics as we open it up for the discussion here. So let's start right here. So in recent studies, at least 50% of psychiatrists interviewed endorsed the view that it is appropriate to inquire about their patients' religious lives. Let me see here. So basically, I'm not going to read that whole paragraph. They think that it's very important for you to ask about the religious life or a lack of religious belief. Because it's important to what mental health issues they're experiencing. Now, we can never tie this down 100% because there are so many factors tied in with mental health issues, like such as where you live. You know, there are some places in the country where if you happen to live there, the suicide and depression rates are much higher. There's places in non-religious countries where the whole non-religious country has the highest suicide rate in the entire world. So it doesn't only apply to that, but as Prototype Atheist mentioned, religion does have a type of placebo effect that tends to hide those feelings and how you experience your mental health issues. So real quickly here, the evidence suggests that on balance, religious involvement is generally conducive to better mental health, and patients with psychiatric disorders frequently use religion to cope with their distress. You guys want to talk about that a little bit? G kind of touched on it in the beginning. But we'll talk about how people actually use religion to combat their mental disorders.
Yeah. Well, I see it as more as like a denial of it, like they're denying the fact that they have these mental issues or these mental problems, and I know because I mean I kind of went through that. I mean, you know, I've had depressive episodes ever since I was in high school. I remember you know what. I would get so bad at times that I would just lay on my bed and I would beg God to end my life just right there and then. However, you know, it would get that bad. But you know, it's see, I was raised Catholic, and they kind of have this this kind of like a trigger guard, I guess, built in, because you know if you're Catholic and you off yourself, then you know you go to hell, and which I'm sure that there are some other denominations that believe that as well. But I mean, you know, me growing up in a Catholic home and very religious home, you know, I subscribe to that. So it's like, well, how do I get out of this then? And you know, it was, well, you know, beg God. And so, you know, there was that for me, and you know, being religious, believing in a God, you know, and believing in this personal God allowed me to really ignore the problems that I had when I was growing up. It allowed me to, you know, it didn't really so much as get me past the depressive episodes or prevent me from having those depressive episodes. It more or less made me suffer through them. Like instead of me realizing that I had, you know, an issue and I needed to seek help for it and therefore improve my life, I had to suffer through it because, you know, that's what I'm meant to do. Like, I deserve to feel this way. I deserve all of this guilt and all of this pain. I deserve everything that's coming to me. You know, it's like I deserve all of these things because I checked that girl's ass out today at lunch. You know, it was just things like that I thought every single day that made me feel like I deserved every single thing that I was feeling. And so religion made it had me suffer through that, and just made me, and it got me even deeper and deeper. And so I think that it doesn't necessarily comfort people. It makes them it makes them suffer through it, and I really don't think that's like a healthy option.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I was actually just having this discussion with another Catholic about the fact that, the church's position is pretty much that if you commit suicide, you're going to go to hell. And, that's obviously that has to be their position, really. It has to be. There's no option there, because if you can kill yourself and go to heaven, then why wouldn't you? I mean, honestly, what's so great about suffering through this life? Even if you're not going through any like trauma, like just we all experience pain. We all suffer at some point or another. So like, if you have eternal bliss awaiting you on the other side, why would you delay that for even a second? So of course it has to be their position, and it can lead to some pretty messed up stuff. I don't know if I've mentioned this before in our discussions, but there's an article, and we can maybe post it later. But basically, it just discusses how I think it was in 17th century Denmark, people who wanted to, they didn't want to go on living anymore, but they had this idea that if they kill themselves, they would go to hell. So what they would do is they would commit a murder, and that would offer them the ability to repent for having sinned before the state then executed them. So they would get the end result of dying, which is what they wanted, but they wouldn't suffer the consequences of going to hell, which is what they believed. So they literally, because of their beliefs, had to kill someone else. And that's the kind of troubling things that these kind of beliefs and teachings can lead to. And then, also the idea of suffering came up. We were discussing Brittany Maynard, that woman in Oregon who recently ended her life. She had the brain tumor. And there's this, especially in Catholicism, there's this idea that suffering is something profound, that you should, there's suffering is almost required, or it's like divine or saintly, that you should suffer. I know that Christopher Hitchens has dealt with that with Mother Teresa. Like, she withheld pain medication from people and told them that suffering brought them closer to God. And then, of course, when she was dying, she did not hesitate for a second to take pain medication. So the hypocrisy there. But the actual teaching is that you should, because, and then a lot of times they'll bring it back to, well, Jesus suffered for you on the cross. Whatever you're going through can't possibly compare to that. So just suck it up, because he died for you so that you could live. So why don't you go ahead and enjoy your life, no matter how bad it may be and how much you're suffering. And again, of course, I'm not condoning by any means anybody committing suicide. I'm just saying that if you actually owned your beliefs as a theist, as a Christian, you would live dangerously. You would take risks, because why would you not want to get to heaven as soon as you could? So it's kind of interesting that atheists experience, kind of have these suicide attempts, or the rate of suicide is higher among atheists, when atheists understand this is the only opportunity they have to live. On the other hand, they could also see it as a way to escape their suffering. So you can take it from that angle. But at the same time, these religious doctrines and teachings, they can be very harmful, and they can lead to negative consequences, certainly. So I think that's what I have to say about that. So I'll shoot it back to you, Aeolus.
Well,
yeah, so you actually... Go ahead, G.
Well, sorry, I was just going to kind of interject real quick before Aeolus takes it again. The Bible Reloaded actually has a video where they kind of take a more economist look at it, of this idea of an afterlife and whatnot. And because it's like, if you let's say you have a certain amount of life, right? If you put like an open-end cap on it, like afterwards, you completely devalue that life that you have now that you're actually living. And so it's like, so from a religious point of view, going purely from the doctrine, not saying that any Christian or theist in general thinks this, but just going off the pure doctrine, it just seems like that life is very devalued in the faith, because you have this afterlife that you're supposed to be going to, right? And so how, as if you think about limits as far as mathematics goes, which I'll try not to speak over too many people's heads, but if you take the limit, as it approaches to infinity, and you have this small amount of life that you have here on this earth, I mean, as you go to infinity, this amount gets ever smaller and smaller until it's so small it's negligible. And so I would I'm going to give Aeolus a link to the Bible Reloaded episode that I'm talking about, where they actually explain this, and they have some nice little images that kind of explain it better. But you know, that's the basic concept of it. And you know, I'm not saying that me as an atheist or any atheist values life any more than a theist at all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that going off of the pure doctrine of it, it seems like the pure doctrine of any faith that has an afterlife associated with it really devalues this life that we have here.
I will say that. I will go out on a limb and say that atheists value life more, especially if they have accepted the finality of life and that this one life is the only life that you get. I will say that you do value life more. I mean, I value my life so much more since I became an atheist, and I realized that ultimately, at the end of the day, only I can make my life better or worse. And really, when you compare that with religion and the idea that God has, you know, he's the dictator of your life and he's up in the sky, puppet master, pulling strings, making it better or worse, you know, that really leaves you feeling like you have a lack of control. But I also wanted to touch on, you talked about the Bible Reloaded there, and I haven't seen that. But you guys were discussing how suicide is frowned upon by religion. And if you think about it, it's got to be frowned upon by religion, because if suicide, which is a way to get to heaven faster, was not frowned upon, it would reduce the capabilities and the capacity for that religion to propagate and spread. So that's another reason why. I mean, if everybody knew, like, hey, if I commit suicide, I'll get to heaven sooner, everybody would be doing it, because honestly, when you compare heaven to the idea of this life is basically hell compared to heaven. So I wanted to talk about, I think it's John 10, was it John 29? John 10, 28, 29, somewhere. And it's in the book of John, where Jesus says that nothing you can do can pluck you from his hand. And then there are a couple other passages throughout Scripture that say that the only unforgivable sin is blasphemy. So actually, and we're not promoting suicide here, that's not what we're saying, but actually suicide does not stop you from going to heaven, contrary to the popular teaching within religion. So another thing I wanted to talk about here was religious attendance has been associated with decreased suicide attempts in the general population and in those with mental illness, independent of the effects of social supports. However, not all religious beliefs and variables are necessarily related to better mental health. So basically everything we've been talking about here is that religion frowns on suicide, and that's why people hide it and they mask it and they don't do it most of the time. So religious delusions have been associated with poorer outcomes, poor treatment adherence, and more severe course of illness, especially in patients with schizophrenia. And we talked about this as well. If you have this belief that God is going to take care of you and get you out of it, it's like a placebo effect. Of course they're going to have poorer outcomes and poorer treatment adherence because they think God is in control. One other thing that I wanted to talk about is the sacrifice of Jesus that Brendan was mentioned there, that somehow it is divine to experience suffering and pain. Well, if we look at this from the theological perspective, if Jesus really was a God, as the story dictates, then what did he really suffer? What did he really sacrifice? He was immortal anyway, and I talk about this all the time. But to identify with such suffering and use that as a comfort to make you feel better because you believe that your God went through this same suffering, let me just put this on the table, that your suffering can never be equated to a God's suffering, because if you think about this, a God is immortal, and based on the definition, so we'll go with Christianity, God is immortal and he is residing in heaven, and when you die you're going to come see him anyway, so what is he really suffering? What is he really losing? So try not to equate your suffering with any God's suffering, because it is totally different. And it's especially because it's a subjective experience. Only you are feeling this. You know, I may have suffered in life. GE may have suffered in life. Brendan may have suffered in life. But ultimately, the suffering is going to be different from how you experienced it. So that's just my piece on that, what I had to say. I think it's John 10 and 28.
Yeah, as far as the suicide sends you to hell as like a direct ticket, I'm wanting to say, if I'm not mistaken, that it's kind of like an inference from how Judas goes to hell or whatnot, because there's actually a contradiction there, because he dies essentially, right? There's two different ways the Bible says that he dies, but he dies and then he goes to hell, and he dies by his own hand, and so they infer, well, if you commit suicide, then you go to hell. I can't think of a Bible verse directly in the Bible anywhere that says that the consequence of committing suicide is going to hell. But then again, I don't have the Bible memorized exactly. I usually just go to Google.
It's not in there. There's virtually nothing that says that. But it's funny that you mentioned the Judas issue, because I mean, technically, if you want to look at this from the theological perspective, since Jesus had just went to the cross and died according to the Bible and the story, he just went to the cross and died. Really, he cannot redeem you of your sins just yet, because theologically he had to go to hell and defeat death and do all that good stuff. So technically, and this was a teaching that I learned from my grandmother, was that Judas went to heaven, which is extremely contrary to popular belief, because he actually went before the priest and he cast the money back to them, and then there was a shedding of blood, and they, that's how you're forgiven of your sins in the Old Testament. And they bought a field in his name. I just wanted to mention that because I thought it was interesting. Most people, when you read that narrative of Christ's suffering, you wouldn't think that Jesus would forgive somebody like Judas, because he was the one that led him to the cross, basically. But the story also says that Satan came into Judas, so is Judas really responsible? I'll turn it over. I'm just rambling now.
Well, the whole bringing the Judas thing up in general, there's also the the Gospel of Judas or whatnot that supposedly tells the story of the betrayal of Jesus from Judas's perspective, which actually puts Judas in a positive light, as if he's actually a player in the actual salvation or whatnot. So he was like a really big figure or agent in it. So I mean, but personally, whenever these new gospels turn up or anything like that, I mean, honestly, it's kind of like having homoerotic Harry Potter novels.
Brendan, did you have any last words you wanted to say about this? I know we're just kind of going off on Judas here, but it does say that in the story, if you guys want to look it up, that Judas was taken over by Satan. And if you'd like to read apocryphal text like the Gospel of Judas, it's a very interesting read.
Well, I would like to say before Brendan interjects that I think it's very interesting, because I hadn't heard actually your position or the actual, I guess, theological perspective on Judas and going to hell and whatnot. So that's actually really interesting to hear.
Hey, I mean, what can you do if Satan comes in you and makes you do these crazy things? Are you really responsible, or is Satan responsible?
Well, I don't know. That guy outside Starbucks that was on YouTube a little while ago, I guess he had some Satan in him.
Brendan.
I was just going to say, if it wasn't any Satan in him, maybe it was the homosexual semen in his latte that was causing him to be possessed. According to that guy over in, New York or whatever, that crazy guy from that church over there. Yeah, he's been in the news in the past, but man, where do they get these guys from?
They got
and I don't really have any comments.
They got the foam on top.
Yeah, right.
So really, guys, basically what we want to follow or kind of end this discussion on is that if you're an atheist, you are more at risk probably, depending on where you live and a whole bunch of other crazy like statistics that we just cannot pinpoint down where you live, how old you are, even what your ethnicity is, just all this crazy stuff. So if you're experiencing issues, there are so many people that you can talk to online. And yeah, that sucks to only talk to someone online, but you probably have humanist organizations in your neighborhood. There are so many outlets for atheists now compared to like 50 years ago to where you can have someone to talk to, and we're even starting to get humanist chaplains now. So it's amazing the level of support that atheists have now. So if you are experiencing these issues, please seek help. There's nothing wrong with you seeking help. There's nothing wrong with you admitting that you have a problem. So unless you guys have anything else to say on that, shout out to all our viewers on YouTube. We'll go on into our next segment, which is the Hypocrite of the Week. We all good on this? Hey, and if you can't find somebody to talk to, I'll just tell you, man, you can talk to me, because there was a time when I felt so hopeless. In like a 5-year period there, I lost 3 people that I was romantically involved with. One died in a house fire overnight, one committed suicide, and the other one died drunk driving. So I'm very experienced with suffering. If you have any need that you need to talk about something, you can come to me. I'd be more than willing to chat with you about it, as well as all the things I experienced with my mother at a very early age. So without further ado, it's time to get into the Hypocrite of the Week. This week's Hypocrite of the Week is going to a pastor who got caught with his pants down boning one of his members of his congregation's wife and got caught on tape. And I just got to play the video, man, because I can't. You just got to see it. So we'll go into that, and you guys just let me know if you can see and hear it. Let's see here. YouTube, screen share. Here we go. Can you guys see it? All right, let me know if you can hear it too. Here we go.
Story of a man of God who was allegedly caught in the act, pants down. The pastor is said to have been found in bed with a woman believed to be his member. The man, claiming to be the woman's husband, rained blows on her as shocked residents watched. Ian Wafula reports on the incident that has rattled the Anglican diocese here in Nairobi.
Not only were emotions running high, but also the blows and kicks at every turn. Husband, let's call him Mr. X, allegedly found his wife, Mrs. Y, sleeping with his good-time friend and a church pastor. A development, he says, confirms his long-held suspicion that she was playing games with him. But while Mrs. Y was on the receiving end, the church pastor, on the other hand, was wondering whether to hide his face or the rest of his body. Even more awkward, the two were forced to pose for a photo shoot session, after which it was time to dress up. Pastor from SCK Pumwani, however, kept his protests, claiming the woman lured him to this lodging under the pretext that she needed urgent prayers since she was not feeling well. And then they all left. Surprisingly, husband and his pastor friend walked out gracefully to their vehicles and drove out. What happened at King Castle Inn was meant to stay at King Castle Inn. Well, not anymore. The Anglican Church says it has begun investigations into the incident and that stern disciplinary actions will be taken against the pastor if the claims are proved to be true.
Hold on.
All right.
Wait a second. Wait a second. Did they just literally say that the King Castle Inn is the Vegas of Uganda or wherever they're at.
Yes, they did. Okay, so first, let's go ahead and talk about this. So, this husband basically he thought that his wife may have been cheating on him. I guess he stalked her or whatever, and he's videoing this. He ends up at the King Castle Inn. What happens at the King Castle Inn stays at the King Castle Inn, and he finds out that his wife is in there getting it on with the pastor. And then not only does he not even say anything to the pastor, he beats his wife right there on camera, kicks her and punches her a couple nice blows there, and then he walks out like a fucking boss with the pastor like nothing ever happened.
Well, I mean, I love the pastor's excuse, though. I mean, it's like, oh, she lured me here, and she said that she needed prayers, and so I thought, well, why don't we have sex? Because, you know, that's what I always think. It's like, oh, you're having some trouble. Why don't we bump uglies?
As Brendan says, it's the ultimate get out of jail free card. He says that all the time, and it's so true. Like, oh, he's like, oh gosh, like, oh, she lured me here. Like, oh man.
I walked into the room, and then all of a sudden my pants and clothes, they all fell off, and then all of hers fell off too, and it was God. Jesus was standing there, and he said, "It's for you, sir. You've been a good servant."
Let me just say, too, I mean, it must have been some good stuff, because did you see that look on her face? Like, she wasn't even upset. She was just, oh, man, she was just grinning like, yeah, and then she went over like a boss and, like, posed with the pastor, too, for the photo shoot. Nice. Brendan.
Yeah, that must that was like the Kenyan version of Cheaters over there going on, that reality TV show. Yeah, that was pretty nice. They're doing some investigative work, but no, seriously, the guy couldn't even own up to it. He's like, yeah, I was lured here under false pretenses. I had to show up at this motel for prayer requests. I mean, obviously that's where all prayer requests occur. I would think, you know. They don't come to the church for that, or you know, you don't come to their house. You got to go meet them at a hotel because that makes sense. I'm surprised she didn't say that she needed some plumbing work done or something, you know. But maybe that was a euphemism. I don't know. But yeah, that's just yeah. And what's up? So the guy just wails away on his wife, and then they just walk out, and like nothing ever happened. And that's just amazing. Wow, that's fantastic right there.
The thing that he says is, this confirmed my suspicions. Like, my wife has been cheating on me. Not my pastor is boning my wife. Like, not only do we have this as an issue in society, we're not even going to touch on it. The cheating partner is always at fault no matter what. And that's just simply not the case. But this pastor... And we continue to say this every week. This is the point of the Hypocrite of the Week. Don't place your hopes and your faith in religious leaders, because they are just like us, and they are more easily corrupted because now they are in this position of power, and people in positions of power have been scientifically proven through different studies that they will abuse this power. So... I just have to mention again that this guy, like, he walked out like a boss with his pastor. I mean, just, did you see that swag walk they had going on? Like, yeah, we proved she was a cheater. Let's get on out of here let's gracefully get into the car.
Come on, homie, let's go. I know she tricked you. She tricked me too. Let's go.
And I like how they add in at the end.
I think maybe the husband and the pastor had a little something going on.
Well, no.
Yeah, maybe they did.
Well, no. At the beginning of it, didn't he say it's like did he say good time friend or long time friend? I don't know. Either one, it sounds a little homoerotic.
Yeah, I don't know.
I was just gonna say maybe
vicious.
It looks like to me that maybe the pastor and the husband had a little something going on, and they were like, "Yeah, we got her out of here. Now we can go ahead and do our thing." And I like it the end of the newscast, they're like, yeah, if the allegations are proved to be true, they will investigate and they will take action against him. Like, what more evidence do you need?
Yeah, but and obviously they didn't show us the whole video. They just showed us the end of the video. He came in with his camera just recorded. They got it, but they had to add on the end, because you can't accuse a pastor of being not a man of God. So, especially in Africa, where some countries over there in Africa are like 93% Christian. So, you can't go against the pastor. They will pass. But I mean, that video is going to stick in my mind because the wife, man, I don't know. It just seems like there was something more. The way she was grinning, like,
cause she had the whole hashtag worth it like written on her face or something like that.
Yeah. So for
at least I felt something.
Okay, so for boning, a member of your congregation's wife getting caught doing it on video, not showing any remorse, then walking out like a fucking boss with the husband, like, yeah, swag walking out. I'm stamping this pastor with hypocrite of the week.
Well, I do have to say, at least he didn't have AIDS like that pastor here in Alabama.
I don't know that yet.
Huh? Oh, we don't. Yeah. No. Yeah. Good point. We don't. They didn't say anything about his health condition, so I don't know. Hopefully he doesn't. I'd feel really bad for her if he does.
Let me also go ahead and stamp the husband, and we don't really have an Idiot of the Week award, but let me go ahead and stamp him with Idiot of the Week for walking out like a boss with the guy who just boned your wife. Come on, man. So, yeah, that was Hypocrite of the Week. Anything else you guys would like to add before we go ahead and cut this short? Shout out to all our viewers on YouTube.
No, just, mental illness, depression, all of that is very serious. And if you're feeling any of these things, reach out to somebody. It doesn't necessarily have to be a professional at first. It could just be a friend to talk to or whatnot, somebody that you feel comfortable with. But eventually, I think the end game, if you really are feeling these things, the end game would be to see a professional and get some professional to talk to about how you're feeling. And don't sit there and feel like you're making it up or anything like that, because I know I felt like that a lot for a good bit. So don't sit there and think that it's not a bad thing to just talk to somebody, and I would highly advocate talking to somebody if you're feeling any certain way.
Yeah, I just have to echo those sentiments as well. If anybody's out there, if they're feeling, depressed, if they're feeling down, like people don't care about them or they have nobody to turn to, I'm not a licensed physician, I'm not a psychologist or anything of that nature. But if you feel like you have nobody to turn to, there's suicide hotlines out there. There's, hell, shoot me an email, shoot me a message if you're somebody that watches our channel or whatever, because there are people that care about you, even if we don't know you personally. Maybe you could tell us your story. Maybe we could get to know you. That's pretty much the message we want to send out there, is that, whether you're an atheist, whether you're religious, whatever the case may be, life is worth living. As far as if you're just going through depression or something of that nature, there's people out there who can help you, who you can turn to, who can support you, who can talk you through it. And that's the most important thing, is just getting help wherever you can. So if you feel like you have nobody to turn to, family-wise or friend-wise, anything of that nature, just reach out to anybody who you might have a connection with. If you're a part of any community at all, even if it's online or whatever the nature of it is, just reach out and people will be there to kind of talk you through it and talk you down if they need to.
So as the prototype atheist mentioned there, we're all available. We may not be available 24/7 to talk to you if you're experiencing mental issues or you're just feeling depressed or maybe suicidal. But look, man, life is worth living, and we are more than willing to talk to you about it. Some of us have a lot of experience dealing with this. As I mentioned, I told you guys about some of my experiences. Look, you know, as atheists, we accept the finality of life. We know this is the one life that we got, and there are so many people that care about you, whether you even realize it or not. As a humanist, I can tell you that I value people more than I value anything else on this earth, and that includes you. So if you need somebody to talk to, we are here, and we didn't specifically say that atheists will be more conducive to experiencing these mental health issues or suicide or substance abuse if you're not religious. All people are susceptible to these issues, and all people, I'm willing to talk to anybody. I don't care if you're religious. You know, sometimes you see us out here making fun of religion or advocating against religion, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm a humanist. I'll talk to anybody. So most humanists are the same exact way. It doesn't have to be me. It can be any humanist. You know, you can go to a humanist chaplain. They're increasing in number here recently. So we just want to say, you know, if you're experiencing any issues, there are people to talk to. And we'll go ahead and say our goodbyes. And tune in next week for a special discussion.
Yes, I am the Godless Engineer, and I would like to echo the sentiments of being able to contact me if you are feeling depressed or any certain way. You know, I'm not a medical professional in the least bit, but, you know, I've had my fair share of dealings with mental illnesses and issues. So please feel free to contact me. You can find me on Facebook. Just type in Godless Engineer or Godless Engineering. I have a Facebook group set up. We try to be a very supportive group. We have multiple other groups that are attached to it that can help you if you're really searching for that. Specifically, one for recovering substance abuse people. If you need like a support system that isn't purely religious based or whatnot, we've actually got a group set up that can help you with that. So, but find me on Facebook. We have a group. I would highly suggest anybody joining that. And then, of course, I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Please go to my my YouTube channel. Subscribe if you like my content. And also, let's try to get Prototype up to his 1,000 subscriber mark. Do try to visit him, check out his videos, and subscribe if you like.
Yeah, thanks. I am Brendan, the Prototype Atheist, and to that, I have to mention a few people that have subscribed within the last hour. I'm not sure if all these people have been with us, but I did get some email notifications. So I want to send a thank you out to Buddy Jesus Smokes, Frank Flyman, Jelani Lopez, and Joshua Hadfield. If any of you are watching, thank you for subscribing. I appreciate it. Also, I know last week we kind of went through some of our more popular fans, people that were more interactive and watched, more of our videos and things like that. I don't have that. I don't have that available to me yet. I don't know at what point that becomes available. If maybe it's 1,000 subscriber mark or what have you. But I do want to mention a few of my fans that I know that have commented a lot of my videos, and I don't want to leave anybody out or anything like that. But these are just a few quick names that I want to mention: Tyler Durden, Overonator, and Chip Argyle. Those are a few of my fans that I know have commented on a lot of my videos, so I want to send a shout out to them. So thanks for watching, everybody. Come on over and subscribe if you haven't done so. And as Aeolus mentioned, we have some things that we're kind of looking forward to bringing to you in the coming weeks. So stay tuned, stick with us, and kind of see what we have to offer, because I'm really excited about it and looking forward to it.
Yes, we do have a special coming up called The War on Christmas, so I can't wait. That's going to be one of my favorite topics to talk about. So I'm Aeolus, as you can see by the banner there. I go by Your Favorite Atheist. I'm the host of Reason, And, you know, we also have a podcast that we're still developing currently. We'll get that underway some more. But you guys need to buy some T-shirts, and you need to go over to Patreon and support us at patreon.com/reason so we can devote more time to this, because we really enjoy making videos. I stand behind the Godless Engineer and the Prototype Atheist 100%. If you aren't subscribed to the Prototype Atheist, get over there. What you waiting for? Subscribe to his channel. But seriously, though, only if you like the content, because nobody likes a bunch of subscribers that don't like your content. Aeolus. Yeah, I have a bunch of creationists, you know, subscribers. Nothing against them. But, as I mentioned, you can support us on patreon.com/reason. We also have our T-shirts. GE, go ahead and show the T-shirt off one more time. We have them at the secularroundtable.com.
Yep, here they are. The Reason shirt. You can get them off of the secularroundtable.com. It's really nice. Just black and white. It's awesome. And we got some more T-shirt designs coming out in the coming weeks, designed by all three of us.
Yes, and the good thing about that T-shirt is it doesn't directly, you know, promote atheists. Somebody might see that and not know that you're an atheist or you don't support atheism. That's the thing I like about that T-shirt. So if you like that T-shirt design, check it out. Don't forget to check out atheismbox.com. It's the first monthly atheist subscription box. I don't know if you like subscription boxes, but I do. I'm subscribed to a lot of them, like Nature Box and 5-4. But if you guys are interested in receiving a monthly box that is specifically designed for atheists, that supports positivity and the understanding of science without trashing any religions, check out atheismbox.com. And as always, guys, we thank you for watching and supporting Reason. So until next time, we'll see you. As Brendan says, keep calm, it seems legit. As Godless Engineer says, you know, think skeptically and stay godless. And as I always say, thank you for watching.